Be yourself, because the world already has enough copies. Too many people spend their entire lives pretending to fit in, pretending to be happy, pretending to be someone they are not. And slowly, they lose themselves. They chase approval. They follow the crowd. They live according to other people's expectations. But let me ask you something. What is the point of gaining acceptance if you lose your identity in the process? The greatest value in life is not what you get. It's what you become. And you cannot become great while pretending to be someone else. Listen carefully. You were not born to copy another person's life. You were born with your own voice, your own purpose, your own gifts. But the world will try to change you. It will tell you to think like everyone else, dress like everyone else, live like everyone else. And if you are not careful, you will spend years trying to belong somewhere. You were never meant to fit. Don't let the opinions of average people determine your future, because average people fear originality. They fear confidence. They fear authenticity. They fear anyone brave enough to stand alone. But greatness has never come from imitation. It comes from courage. The courage to say, this is who I am. And yes, some people will misunderstand you. Some people will judge you. Some people will walk away. Let them, because your job is not to impress everyone. Your job is to become the best version of yourself. Think about how exhausting it is to wear a mask every day, to constantly seek validation, to live according to other people's approval. That is not freedom. That is prison. Real freedom begins the moment you become comfortable with who you are. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Build yourself. Know yourself. Respect yourself. Because once you truly become yourself, something powerful happens. You stop comparing. You stop pretending. You stop chasing acceptance. And you start living with peace, with confidence, with purpose. So, we're going to talk honestly about identity, self-worth, confidence, authenticity, and most importantly, how to stop hiding and finally become who you were meant to be. Because the truth is simple. The strongest people in the world are the people brave enough to be themselves. The greatest challenge in life is to become yourself in a world trying to make you like everyone else. Think about that. From the moment you enter the world, people begin telling you who to be, how to act, how to speak, how to think. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin changing yourself for acceptance. You hide your real thoughts, hide your personality, hide your uniqueness. Why? Because you want to fit in. But here's the danger. The more you try to become like everyone else, the further you move away from yourself. And that creates emptiness. Because deep inside, you know when you are pretending. You know when you are living according to other people's expectations. And that feeling will quietly destroy your peace. If you try to please everyone, you may end up losing yourself. Now listen carefully. There is power in being yourself. Real power. Not pretending. Not performing. Not copying. Just being honest about who you are. Because authenticity creates freedom. You stop chasing approval. You stop comparing yourself. You stop exhausting yourself trying to impress people. And for the first time, you begin to breathe differently. You begin to live with peace. Most people never experience that peace because they spend their entire lives acting successful, acting confident, acting happy, but pretending is exhausting. You cannot build a meaningful life on a false identity. Sooner or later, the mask becomes heavy. That is why being yourself matters. Because the moment you stop pretending, you regain your strength. Now, understand this deeply. You do not need to become someone else to succeed. You need to become the best version of yourself. Your story matters. Your personality matters. Your voice matters. There is something unique inside you that no one else can replace. But if you spend your life copying others, that uniqueness never develops, and the world loses the real you. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That means learning who you are, what you believe, what you value, what kind of life you truly want. Not what social media tells you, not what the crowd tells you. You, because when you know yourself, you stop being easily controlled. People's opinions lose power over you. Comparison loses power over you. Fear loses power over you. And confidence begins to grow. Not fake confidence, real confidence. The kind that comes from self-respect. You see, the strongest people are not always the loudest. Sometimes the strongest people are simply the most authentic. They know who they are, and they refuse to betray themselves for acceptance. That takes courage, because the truth is, not everyone will understand you. Some people may judge you. Some may reject you, but that's all right. Let others live small lives. You were designed for growth. You are not here to live according to everyone else's expectations. You are here to build your own path. And yes, that path may look different, but different is not weakness. Different can become greatness. Every great leader, every great thinker, every great creator had the courage to be themselves. While everyone else copied, they stayed authentic. And that authenticity became their power. Now let me ask you something. How much energy are you wasting? Trying to be accepted? Trying to fit in? Trying to become someone else? Imagine what would happen if you use that energy to build yourself instead, to grow, to learn, to improve, to become stronger. That is where your real life begins. The moment you stop performing and start becoming, you do not need permission to be yourself. You do not need approval to live your truth. Because the moment you fully accept who you are, something powerful happens. You stop living for the world. And finally, start living for yourself. Be yourself. That is where your true power lives. One of the greatest freedoms in life is freedom from other people's opinions. Let's talk honestly. Most people are not living their own lives. They are living for approval. Approval from family, approval from friends, approval from strangers. They change who they are just to be accepted. They say yes when they want to say no. They stay silent when they want to speak. They pretend to agree just to avoid rejection. And slowly, piece by piece, they lose themselves. Because every time you betray yourself for approval, you weaken your confidence. If you live for everyone's approval, you will die from their rejection. Think about that. When your happiness depends on other people's opinions, your peace becomes unstable. One compliment makes you feel valuable. One criticism destroys your confidence. That is emotional slavery. And millions of people live this way every day. They dress for approval, speak for approval, post online for approval. Everything becomes performance. But here's the problem. No matter how hard you try, you will never please everyone. Some people will criticize you no matter what. Some people will misunderstand you no matter what. So why waste your life trying? The few who do are the envy of the many who only watch. Successful people understand something important. You must learn to disappoint some people. In order to stay true to yourself, that takes courage. Because people-pleasing feels safe. You avoid conflict. Avoid rejection. Avoid uncomfortable conversations. But safety comes with a price. The price is authenticity. And the longer you ignore your real self, the more empty you begin to feel. Now listen carefully. There is nothing wrong with being kind. Nothing wrong with caring about others. But there is a difference between kindness and self-betrayal. Too many people sacrifice their peace, trying to keep everyone else comfortable. They carry emotional weight that was never theirs to carry. And eventually, they become exhausted, because pretending is exhausting. You cannot build a powerful life while constantly shrinking yourself. That is why you must stop seeking constant approval. Not because you become arrogant, but because you finally develop self-respect. Self-respect says, I don't need everyone to agree with me. I don't need everyone to like me. I will still stand firm in who I am. That is maturity. Now let me tell you something powerful. The moment you stop living for approval, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Because now, you think independently. You act intentionally. You stop being controlled by fear of judgment. And freedom begins. Freedom to speak honestly. Freedom to pursue your own path. Freedom to become your true self. The major key to your better future is you. Not the crowd, not public opinion, you. But to build that future, you must stop handing your identity to other people. You must stop asking the world, am I enough? Because your worth cannot be measured by applause. Some people will clap for you today and criticize you tomorrow. So don't build your confidence on unstable foundations. Build it internally. Know your values. Know your purpose. Know your principles. And stand on them firmly. Even if people disagree. Even if people walk away. Because losing fake approval is better than losing yourself. Now let me ask you something. How many dreams have you ignored because you feared judgment? How many times have you hidden your real personality because you feared rejection? That fear is expensive. It steals confidence. It steals authenticity. It steals potential. But today, you can choose differently. You can stop performing, stop pretending, stop shrinking yourself for acceptance, and finally begin living honestly. Not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will support your growth. But that's all right. Because your purpose in life is not to please everyone. Your purpose is to become fully yourself. The better you know yourself, the better your life becomes. Let's slow down for a moment, because this part is important. Most people spend their lives trying to understand the world, but very few people take time to understand themselves. And that is dangerous. Because if you don't know who you are, the world will tell you who to become. People will shape your thinking. Social media will shape your identity. The crowd will shape your decisions. And before long, you begin living a life that doesn't even feel like yours. For things to change, you have to change. But change begins with awareness. Self-awareness. The ability to honestly look at yourself, your habits, your thoughts, your strengths, your weaknesses. Not to judge yourself, but to understand yourself, because you cannot improve a life. You refuse to examine. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat alone? Without distraction? No phone. No noise. No entertainment. Just you and your thoughts. Most people avoid that silence. Why? Because silence reveals truth. It reveals what you truly want, what truly matters, who you truly are, and many people fear that discovery. So they stay distracted, busy, constantly consuming noise. But growth requires reflection. Spend major time on major things. And one of the major things in life is knowing yourself, because self-awareness changes everything. When you know yourself, you stop copying others. You stop chasing things that don't matter. You stop living according to everyone else's expectations. And you begin making decisions that align with your real values. That is power. Now listen carefully. You are not perfect. No one is. Self-awareness is not pretending to have no flaws. It is having the courage to face them honestly. To admit, yes, I procrastinate. Yes, I overthink. Yes, I seek approval. Yes, I doubt myself. Because honesty creates growth. Denial creates stagnation. You cannot change what you will not confront. The strongest people are not people without weaknesses. The strongest people are those willing to work on themselves. Daily, quietly, consistently. Now here is something important. Self-awareness also helps you discover your strengths, your natural gifts, your values, your purpose. Because every person has something unique inside them. But if you constantly compare yourself to others, you never develop your own identity. You become distracted by imitation. And imitation weakens originality. That's why knowing yourself matters. Because once you understand yourself, confidence grows naturally. Not fake confidence. Not loud confidence. Quiet confidence. The kind that says, I know who I am. And when you know who you are, other people's opinions lose power over you. You stop trying to fit into places you were never meant to belong. You stop shrinking yourself for acceptance. And slowly, you begin living more honestly, more peacefully, more intentionally. Now, understand this deeply. Self-awareness is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong process. You continue learning, continue growing, continue improving. That is maturity. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Study yourself. Understand your habits. Pay attention to your thinking, because your life will always reflect your inner world. And when your inner world becomes clear, your outer world begins to change too. You cannot truly become yourself until you take time to discover yourself. So slow down. Be honest. Reflect deeply. Because hidden beneath the noise, hidden beneath the pressure, hidden beneath the expectations, is the real you. And once you discover that person, everything begins to change. The few who dare to be different are usually the ones who change the world. Let's talk about courage. Not physical courage, but a deeper kind of courage. The courage to be yourself in a world that rewards conformity. Because the truth is, most people are afraid to stand out. They fear judgment, fear rejection, fear being misunderstood. So they follow the crowd, even when the crowd is lost. Don't join an easy crowd. You won't grow. Think about that. Average thinking creates average lives. And if you spend your life copying everyone else, you may fit in, but you may never discover your greatness. Now listen carefully. Being different is uncomfortable. When you choose a different path, people may question you. When you think differently, people may criticize you. When you refuse to follow the crowd, some people may walk away. And that's where courage becomes necessary. Because authenticity often requires standing alone. Most people don't want to stand alone. They want approval, acceptance, validation. But growth rarely happens inside comfort. All progress begins outside the comfort zone. The moment you stop trying to please everyone, you begin growing into yourself. Now understand this. Being different does not mean being rebellious for attention. It means being honest about who you are, your values, your vision, your purpose. Even when it makes other people uncomfortable, that is strength. You see, the world respects authenticity more than imitation. Anyone can copy. Very few people have the courage to lead themselves. And leadership always begins internally. It begins when you stop asking, what will people think? And start asking, what kind of person do I want to become? That question changes everything. Because once your focus shifts toward growth, you stop wasting energy trying to fit in. You begin building yourself instead. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Improve your mind. Improve your discipline. Improve your character. Not to impress people, but to fulfill your potential. Now let me tell you something important. Every great person in history was misunderstood at some point. People laughed at their vision, doubted their direction, questioned their decisions, but they continued anyway. Why? Because they trusted themselves more than they feared public opinion. That is courage. And you will need that courage too. Because the moment you decide to grow, not everyone will support you. Some people prefer the old version of you, the smaller version, the comfortable version. But you cannot evolve while staying trapped in old expectations. Sometimes growth requires disappointing people, not out of disrespect, but out of self-respect. You must be willing to be misunderstood while becoming who you are meant to be. That's part of the journey. Now imagine what happens when you finally stop pretending. You stop chasing approval. Stop comparing yourself. Stop hiding your personality. And for the first time, you live honestly. That honesty creates confidence. That confidence creates peace. And that peace creates power. Because now, your life belongs to you again. Not to society. Not to trends. Not to the opinions of strangers. You become free. And freedom is one of the greatest forms of success. The world does not need another copy. It already has enough people pretending. What the world truly needs is people brave enough to be real. So stand firm in who you are, even if you stand alone for a while, because sometimes the people who look different today become the people everyone admires tomorrow. Have the courage to be different. That is where greatness begins. Your life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. Let's bring everything together now. We talked about being yourself, not pretending, not copying, not living for approval. But now comes the most important question. Who are you becoming? Because being yourself does not mean staying the same forever. It means becoming the highest version of who you were created to be. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That is the secret. Most people spend years trying to improve their circumstances, but ignore improving themselves. And yet, your outer life will rarely rise above your inner life. If your thinking is weak, your results will be weak. If your discipline is weak, your future becomes unstable. That is why personal growth matters. Not for appearance, not for status, but for transformation. Now listen carefully. The best version of yourself will not appear by accident. You must build it daily through your habits, your mindset, your discipline, your decisions. Every day, you are either becoming stronger or becoming weaker. There is no standing still. Success is a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Simple disciplines. Reading instead of wasting time. Learning instead of complaining. Taking action instead of procrastinating. Small choices. Repeated consistently. That is how great lives are built. Now, let me ask you something. What kind of person do you want to become? A person controlled by fear? Or a person guided by purpose? A person constantly seeking approval? Or a person who lives with self-respect? Because the quality of your life will depend on the quality of the person you become. That's why growth matters more than image. Many people focus on looking successful. Few focus on becoming valuable. But true success begins internally, in your character, your integrity, your discipline. Character is not something you were born with and cannot change, like your fingerprints. It's something you weren't born with and must take responsibility for forming. Take responsibility for yourself, your habits, your mindset, your attitude, because blaming others will never improve